I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Donald Trump is being called out again in another federal filing by E. Jean Carroll's lawyer in connection with the ongoing trial, which is currently taking place in a federal courthouse in Manhattan. And Donald Trump was ordered by the federal judge presiding over the case, Judge Lewis Kaplan, to remove certain social media posts that Donald Trump made where he attacked E. Jean Carroll. He called the case a scam, but more significantly, he talked about things in his post that he was precluded from talking about during the case itself based on prior judicial orders by Judge Lewis Kaplan, because there was either no evidence to support these spurious allegations or accusations being made by Donald Trump, or he waived the right to make these arguments because he didn't introduce evidence at the appropriate time during the case itself when the deadlines were. So one of the big problems about Donald Trump posting all of these things on his social media platform that he was not allowed to talk about in court while he was too cowardly to appear at court is that it is these extrajudicial statements that are intended to taint the jury pool and cause the exact type of prejudice that the judge was trying to avoid. And, while there are First Amendment rights, of course, to make certain statements and to criticize the case if that's what you want to do, although it's probably something you shouldn't do while the trial is taking place. The issue here is trying to introduce evidence that you're not allowed to introduce because it has already been ruled on as being invalid or as being not relevant evidence, or you've waived the deadline to try to make the argument that the evidence may be relevant, or that it is just kind of pure conjecture intended to further harass E. Jean Carroll. So I want to read for you the letter right now that E. Jean Carroll's lawyers just filed in federal court. This is what they wrote to the Honorable Lewis A. Kaplan. Dear Judge Kaplan, we write on behalf of plaintiff E. Jean Carroll to update the court about the two statements that defendant Donald J. Trump made about this case on Truth Social on April 26, 2023, the second day of trial in this action. We flagged these posts to Your Honor as soon as we learned of them, raising our concerns that Mr. Trump was improperly making extrajudicial statements about inadmissible and prejudicial evidence. See, that's the issue there, right? That it's inadmissible and prejudicial evidence that's not allowed in, and he's making those statements intentionally to try to prejudice the jury pool. The letter goes on to say, Your Honor, the judge, acknowledged this concern, stating that Mr. Trump seemed to be basically endeavoring, certainly to speak to his public, but more troublesome to the jury in this case, about stuff that has no business being spoken about. It's a direct quote from the judge. It goes on to say, and the judge said, it seems highly, highly inappropriate. The next day, Mr. Trump's counsel, Joe Tacopina, reported that he had spoken with his client about the posts. He represented to Your Honor, to this court, that the posts would be taken down in short order. There's a footnote there. I'll get to the footnote in a moment. The letter goes on to say, to be clear, we have no doubt that Mr. Tacopina spoke to his client about this and sincerely believed that the posts would be taken down. Unfortunately, the posts remain available on Truth Social as of the time of this filing. And then they attach to the letter the posts showing that they're there as of the time of this filing. For the reasons previously stated, we continue to object to Mr. Trump's public statements about evidence the court held to be inadmissible at trial and remain concerned about the prejudice that this statement may have already caused plaintiff in these proceedings. Respectfully submitted, Roberta A. Kaplan, who is counsel for E. Jean Carroll. You go to the footnote in the letter, and the footnote says the following. While Mr. Trump has not discussed the trial on his Truth Social account since April 26th, he has spoken with reporters about the case, stating, among other things, that he planned to go back to New York and confront E. Jean Carroll. This woman is a disgrace, he stated, and that's from a May 4th, 2023 press statement that he made while he was in Ireland. And that's an article on Politico that is linked in this filing. You know, one thing to mention as well is that last week, Joe Tacopina had to acknowledge to the court that he really has no control over Donald Trump. And it seems like an obvious thing, but, you know, Tacopina was trying to, I think, put on this front that he was, you know, strong and he was going to be no nonsense in the courtroom. And I just think as Donald Trump continued to violate court orders, Donald Trump, you know, fled to Ireland and Scotland during the trial, and Donald Trump continued to post these things. There are rules in federal courthouses, like law and order actually means something. And as a lawyer, you know, I'm a lawyer. Lawyers were officers of the court. You know, we do have ethical responsibilities, and we can lose our legal licenses if in connection with our representation, we're lying to the court, we're engaging in other improprieties. We've always stated here when it comes to Donald Trump, and Tacopina is learning this now, that MAGA stands for Make Attorneys Get Attorneys. Inevitably, people who represent Donald Trump are just pawns in Donald Trump's broader agenda of trying to destroy law and order. And that's why, you know, ultimately, while I believe, you know, everybody, you know, deserves the ability to have a lawyer, especially if they're being accused of things. And I don't fault lawyers if they're representing people who are accused of even heinous crimes. I mean, that is the job of like criminal defense lawyers and public defenders, and it's an important part of our system. And so I wouldn't normally criticize a lawyer for doing that. The problem is when it comes to Trump, his ultimate design is not self-defense. It is actually destruction of our democracy, destruction of the system, destruction of law and order to hoist up a kangaroo court-like system that exists in places like Russia and North Korea. And you see that with the type of proceedings, for example, that Jim Jordan and James Comer that these MAGA Republicans have, where they bring forward fake whistleblowers who don't really exist, and based on not evidence but pure conjecture and speculation and hearsay on top of hearsay on top of hearsay, they try to defame and destroy people's lives. That is ultimately their design, which is why when you're Donald Trump's lawyer, you're not actually doing the work that I think the Constitution envisions, which is important work. What you're actually doing is trying to tear down the fibers of our Constitution, and that is the problem. That is the issue. And Tacopina had to tell the judge, this was the end of last week, Judge, and Tacopina was beat down. You know, and Tacopina was like, Judge, I know you understand what I am dealing with here. I'm sorry. You know what I have to deal with. Referring to Donald Trump, when Donald Trump says he's going to return from Ireland, and Tacopina saying, Judge, we've already waived the right for him to testify. He's not. Then why is he saying it, Tacopina? Judge, I'm sorry. You know what I'm dealing with here. That's how Tacopina ended the last week of proceedings. But E. Jean Carroll's lawyer is absolutely right here. This is prejudicial. This is an extrajudicial statement that Donald Trump's not allowed to make in court. He's in trial right now, and he's too big of a coward to show up. And instead of actually being in a forum where facts and evidence matter. Donald Trump doesn't like that for him. He doesn't like law and order. So he goes on his social media platform just to lie and lie and lie and to attack and to, be in his echo chamber where the cult can engage in the stochastic terrorism that he and the modern day MAGA Republicans love. And it is despicable. Anyway, we'll keep you updated on what happens here. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 1.5 million subscribers. Thanks to your support. Let's get there by the summer. It's free to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch, and wherever you get audio podcasts, subscribe to the MeidasTouch podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Hit subscribe to this YouTube channel. It is free, and have a great day.
Lock him up! Indictment season is upon us. Celebrate with the new Indictment Season t-shirt and v-neck exclusively at store.MeidasTouch.com.